Welcome back to the 3 months of modal logic. This is equal to the 100 days of logic here at the Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with epistemic logic, looking at constant specifications. Now, a constant specification is a set of axioms and constants which justify those axioms. Basically, a constant specification is like a big list of which axioms are justified and to what degree they're justified. So imagine that any justification logic has a constant specification, and it's like a big book that's a list of which axioms are justified and how much they're justified. A particular axiom A might be justified only once. In that case, the only mention of that axiom we would find in our constant specification would be JR1A. It's basically saying that reason 1 justifies a particular axiom A. However, a constant justification might go deeper for a particular axiom. A particular axiom might be justified at a deeper level or to a higher degree. So, if we said that there was some reason that justified the claim that reason R justifies A, we would then list another axiom, or another part of our constant specification, which would be JR2, JR1A. And then if in turn that set of reasons, that reason for justifying the axiom, had some reason, we would list a third one, and so on, depending on how deep our particular axiom is justified. Now, you might even have some axiom, and this is going back to our principle of logical awareness, which is justified at any depth. Basically, for any reason, Rn, where n is a natural number, greater than 1, there is an element of the constant specification, Rn, JRn minus 1, all the way down to JR2, JR1A, basically, for any n. All right? So it would just keep going on, and we need an infinite book, basically. Now, a constant specification, which we're going to refer to as CS, will be considered axiomatically appropriate if and only if all of the axioms in the system are justified at any depth, or infinitely justified. Or in other words, all axioms of the system must be justified at the bottom level, or the top level, however you're looking at it, which is with a first reason. And if any axiom is justified at some level Rn, which could be R1, then it is also justified at the next level, Rn plus 1. Or in other words, for all axioms A, Rn justifies the claim that R1 justifies A through a long string of justifications of however far n is from 1, implies that Rn plus 1 justifies that long string of justifications we saw a moment ago. If you're confused by this, check out the logical awareness principle, because this is going to be a requirement for complete logical awareness and for the axiom internalization rule. But hopefully that's clear. Basically, a constant specification, so a list of all the axioms that are justified, is axiomatically appropriate if all of the axioms of the system are justified at any depth, at any level. They're infinitely justified. Now, to be clear, I am completely in opposition to this position. Axioms cannot, by definition, be justified. That's what makes them axioms. They are assumed without argument. They are the kind of things that aren't supposed to be justified. The reason we're calling them justified is because we need to pretend that our basic axioms are justified to then imply that things above them are justified. But the only justification we actually have for these axioms is assumption. There is no real justification for them. These imaginary infinite chains of justification just exist for the purposes of using those axioms to pretend that other things beyond them are justified. The dogmatist has not shown that the axioms are actually justified even at the basic level, let alone at all of those levels they claim underneath. As dogmatists often do, justification logic beyond J0 ignores the problem of Agrippa's trilemma and simply claims not only that these axioms are justified, but they are justified in being justified, and so on. Without any real justification for this claim beyond that we couldn't do justification logic like we want to if we didn't make such assumptions. Furthermore, since anything implies the truths of logic, any reason, any constant implies the laws of logic are true. Basically, if you're curious, check out my video on Pyrrho and the Academics for more on Agrippa's trilemma. But the point here is that even though these axioms are stating that the laws of logic are infinitely justified, this logical system has done nothing to prove that those laws of logic are infinitely justified. I'm not saying that it's impossible for them to do it or it's impossible to show that they're justified. I'm saying that simply because we take those as axioms doesn't mean that they're true or they map onto some element of reality or that the dogmatist has kind of finished their project and doesn't have to do any more work. They only have stated what they want to get to. They haven't done the work of actually proving some reason. And I would argue, since these are axioms, there's no way for them to prove that reason. But we'll set that aside for now. Next up, we're going to be looking at the axiom internalization rule and system J. Watch a new video every single day for 100 days here at Carneades.org and stay skeptical, everybody.